Humanity has often been enthralled by the ideas of kings and queens, people with unlimited power and complete control. While kings and queens are most often looked at as things from a bygone era, I have to take a minute to acknowledge a king that is still in power. Well, at least for now. The monarch that I would like to acknowledge is Marvel, the one true king of cinema that has reigned for nearly 2 decades now. The MCU and the expanded TV universe has captivated the minds of audiences on a global scale due to their intricate web of stories and their iconic characters. For the majority of their time on top, Marvel has been an excellent king and provided us, the fans, with a ton of entertainment. But lately, the king has begun to look a little fatigued. The movies are being rushed, characters are being misused, and the story seems to be the least important part of each film. While Marvel has been declining, an old challenger for the throne is returning. A potentially new and improved DCU has become quite the talking point as of late and has the superhero buzz going again. With DC rising in popularity and a fresh start on the horizon, it begs the question, how do you guys feel about the rivalry renewed? And what would you say about Marvel's grip on the top spot? Long live the king, or the king is dead? On today's episode of The Third Floor, we're going to discuss who the new king of comics is and what their reign will look like. But before we get started, I'd like to ask you to please remember to like and subscribe. We're on the road to 1,000 subs, and we appreciate your support. For the last 20 years, the DC vs. Marvel debate has been a passionate one between two very loyal fan bases. It's always fun to hypothesize battles between the Avengers and Justice League, to discuss who has the better villains, and etc. And if you're looking at this debate through the lens of comic books only, then it's really a great discussion. But as soon as you move away from the pages and jump onto the big or silver screens, the debate becomes a lot less enjoyable. Marvel has had a chokehold on live-action superhero content for basically as long as they've made movies. Sure, DC has had some small blips of success, like the Dark Knight trilogy, but they were never really able to sustain a big push for the top spot. And why is that? DC has all the same quality characters that Marvel has, some would even say they have better. They also have great stories and messages to be told just like the MCU. So why do they fail so often? To me, that comes down to a few reasons. The first reason is impatience. Since the superhero boom in the early 2000s, DC's been trying to play catch up to the MCU. They didn't want to miss out on the popularity of superhero content, so they rushed their projects, they made poor castings, and then to put a bow on it, made one of the worst superhero team-up movies I've ever seen in the Justice League. But that lack of quality isn't just down to being impatient. This is also due to improper hirings. Whether it was Jesse Eisenberg as Lex Luthor, Kristen Wiig as Cheetah, or I know I'm going to get some flack about this, but Zack Snyder being used to direct the majority of these movies, DC made some horrible choices on personnel for their company. These people either didn't care about the source material or had their own ideas that were so far from reality that they just didn't come across well on the screen. Having a group of some bad actors and pairing them with directors who were all pulling in different directions was just a disaster waiting to happen. But to be fair, I don't think all of this is DC's fault. I think another one of the reasons they repeatedly fail is, in general, I think the heroes in the DC universe are more fantastic than the MCU. What I mean by that is, all the superheroes have powers that are grandiose and require massive amounts of CGI to bring to life. I mean, look at Green Lantern, for example. How can you make him relevant without massive amounts of CG? And these CGI requirements make these characters much harder to bring to life, and more importantly, much harder to make them feel real. And this doesn't even begin to mention the massive hole CG digs into each movie's budget. I just think, with the modern audience, the more CG a movie has, the cheaper it feels. So DC's fighting an uphill battle here. Even if they could make compelling stories, which they seem to struggle with, they just don't seem capable of making a movie that is visually appealing. And in today's day and age, that's just not good enough. But I know what you're all thinking. If DC is this bad, and they have such a negative history, why do they suddenly have a shot at the top spot? My answer to you is, have you seen Marvel lately? Long gone are the days of the Infinity Saga, and in its place is something unrecognizable. Now, to be clear, I don't just mean because most of our beloved MCU characters are gone. When I say unrecognizable, I mean the tone, attention to detail, and the story behind each film. Now, I know this is going to seem dramatic because they are, quote unquote, just superhero movies, but the films in the Infinity Saga felt important. They had stories and characters that made audiences feel invested. They taught impactful lessons and represented microcosms of real life in an entertaining way. I'm not saying the entire Infinity Saga was perfect, because it was not, but I feel most of the stories told in that era had substance to them. There was a reason for us to watch. Now, when I hear stories of people leaving Marvel movies, the most common thing I hear is, why did they need to make this movie? And why did I bother watching it? And I think that is the MCU's biggest problem. When they were at their most successful, it was when they put the most thought into their stories. You know, the why they wrote them. The story should be the most important feature in any movie, not the celebrity cameos they can fit in, the poor humor, or the money they can make from it. It should always, always be about the story, especially for a company that uses a lot of smaller stories to make one big grand adventure. It's like building a house out of brick. Remove a few pieces and sure, you'll still have something that looks like a house, but if you look closer or the wind blows a bit, you have something that won't stand up to the pressure. And we're fans of Marvel. We care about the characters, so you best believe we're going to look closely, and we expect to be rewarded for that attention to detail, not punished. Now, to be fair, this isn't me saying that Marvel is completely done. They do have a few upcoming projects that people genuinely seem excited for. Things like Daredevil Born Again, The Fantastic Four, and Avengers Doomsday. But despite this excitement, do you notice the trend here? Each of these projects are revivals of already used characters. Daredevil was an extremely popular show on Netflix before its cancellation. Fantastic Four has been rebooted twice now. And Avengers Doomsday sees Robert Downey Jr. returning to the MCU. Of course, I'd be lying if I said I wasn't excited for these things. They're super cool. But let me ask you this. Do healthy and thriving companies often have to revert back to previous successes to ensure they prosper in the future? To me, this seems like a band-aid over a massive wound. They're showing us that they no longer have the ability to create new and engaging characters for us, so they have to go back to their ex, in a manner of speaking, to try and rekindle the spark. Now, to reiterate, I am very excited for these projects. I mean, they look super cool. I think Daredevil is the greatest superhero show of all time, and I cannot wait to see Robert Downey Jr. come back to the MCU. All I'm trying to say is that I think this trend of going back for nostalgia boosts is not a healthy way for the MCU to build sustained success. They're going to need new stars and new characters and new stories in order to carry them to their end, which I assume is a few years from now and will be the Avengers movie vs. Galactus. So we basically have two companies that stink right now. That's the bottom line. They stink. So who's going to get the upper hand? It's very hard to say, as almost everything good about the DCU is hypothetical right now, but here's my prediction. If Superman Legacy is even remotely good, I think people are going to be so eager for a change that DC will actually take over that top spot. Now, this isn't going to be a James Gunn butt-kissing show, as I actually do have a ton of reservations about him, but despite my hesitations, I do think he does some good work developing characters. So if he nails Superman, I think he'll have more success coming right behind him. But, unfortunately, I don't think that success will last forever. I think DC will do very well for a short while, especially in the beginning with Superman, Lanterns, and all those other projects in their first phase, or whatever they call them. It'll be new, it'll be fresh, and it'll be nice to see DC characters getting some love. But while that's happening, Marvel will continue to chug along. They probably won't make any major changes for a few years. But that will all change when we begin to tell the Galactus vs. Avengers storyline. And I know we already dropped a few Galactus teasers, but I mean when we really start to tell that main story. By then, I think they'll start bringing in more and more of the former characters like Captain America, Iron Man, and etc. And even though I said it's unhealthy, I think the nostalgia will be way too strong, and Marvel will take back the top spot and end its run with the crown back on its head. So, to wrap up my opinion, I think DC will wear the crown for a while and enjoy a rare run on top. But unless they do something spectacular, I think the ending of the Marvel Universe will bring us all right back and make us feel like we're back in the Infinity Saga again. And I hope DC puts up a good fight, I really do. I myself am a DC guy and would love for them to have a sustained period of success. But like I said, they're going to have to change the game. They're going to have to completely reinvent themselves and start doing more things like Penguin and the Batman and really surprise people for them to have a chance. So even though I predict a little stumble over the next couple of years, I have to say, long live the king. And that's the video, guys. Thanks so much for listening to my thoughts on the Marvel vs. DC rivalry. Let me know in the comments who will reign supreme by typing long live the king for Marvel or the king is dead for DC. As always, thanks so much for watching. Please remember to like and subscribe, and we'll catch you next time on the third floor.